The night was meant to be a celebration, yet it became a wound that would never heal. On 14 April 1865, days after the Civil War had effectively ended, the United States exhaled in relief, unaware that history was about to turn savage. Gas lamps flickered across Washington's muddy streets, and laughter drifted from Ford's Theater. The nation believed the nightmare was over. It was wrong.
America in 1865 was exhausted yet hopeful. 4 years of bloodshed had torn the nation apart, brother against brother, field against field. Nearly 620,000 lives had been lost. The Union had survived, slavery was collapsing, and a fragile peace hovered like morning mist. At the center of it all stood President Abraham Lincoln, weary, victorious, and dangerously exposed.
Lincoln spoke not of vengeance, but of mercy. He urged reconciliation with the defeated South, promising malice toward none and charity for all. His words carried weight, yet they also stirred fury. To some, he was a savior. To others, a tyrant who had crushed their way of life. And in that anger, something dark began to form.
John Wilkes Booth was handsome, charismatic, and dangerously devoted to the Confederate cause. A famous stage actor, he thrived on applause and attention. But beneath the charm lay bitterness. He believed Lincoln had destroyed the South and humiliated its honor. In his mind, revenge was not murder, it was justice.
Booth's original scheme was not assassination. He intended to kidnap the president and exchange him for Confederate prisoners. It was reckless but calculated. Yet when General Robert E. Lee surrendered at Appomattox, Booth's desperation deepened into rage. The Confederacy had fallen, and in Booth's mind, only blood could answer blood.
He gathered a small circle of conspirators who shared his resentment. They met quietly, convinced they were defending liberty rather than destroying it. Among them were Lewis Powell, David Harold, George Atzerodt, and Mary Surratt, whose boarding house became a hub of whispers and plans. They believed history would vindicate them. Instead, it would condemn them.
On the morning of 14 April, Lincoln seemed unusually cheerful. The war was ending. The Union was intact. He spoke of rebuilding the nation and granting rights to formerly enslaved people. That evening, he decided to attend a comedy at Ford's Theater with his wife, Mary. It would be his final public appearance.
The theater glowed with warmth and anticipation. The play, Our American Cousin, promised laughter, and the audience welcomed the president with applause. Lincoln smiled modestly from the decorated box draped in flags. Few noticed Booth moving freely through the corridors. As an actor familiar with the theater, he knew every entrance and exit.
At precisely 10:15 p.m., as laughter thundered across the hall, Booth slipped into the presidential box. He carried a small .44 caliber Derringer pistol. He stepped behind Lincoln and fired a single shot into the back of his head. The sound was sharp, shocking, final. Booth leapt from the box to the stage below, catching his spur in the flag and fracturing his leg. Rising in pain, he cried out, "Sic semper tyrannis," thus always to tyrants. Some thought it part of the performance. Then the screaming began. The United States president lay mortally wounded.
Doctors rushed forward as chaos consumed the theater. Lincoln was carried across the street to a small boarding house and laid diagonally on a narrow bed too short for his tall frame. Blood soaked the pillow. Cabinet members gathered in silence. Through the long night, the nation waited. At 7:22 a.m. on 15 April 1865, Abraham Lincoln died. Secretary of War Edwin Stanton softly declared that he now belonged to the ages. Outside, crowds wept openly in the streets. Victory had turned instantly into grief.
The assassination was part of a wider conspiracy. That same night, Lewis Powell attacked Secretary of State William Seward, stabbing him repeatedly, though he survived. George Atzerodt lost his nerve and failed to kill Vice President Andrew Johnson. The plan had aimed to decapitate the government in one sweeping strike. America had come terrifyingly close to deeper chaos.
The manhunt for Booth stretched across Maryland and Virginia. Soldiers tracked him relentlessly for 12 days. He was finally cornered inside a burning tobacco barn. A shot rang out, and Booth collapsed, paralyzed. His final whispered words were said to be, "Useless, useless."
4 conspirators were executed by hanging, including Mary Surratt, the first woman put to death by the federal government. Questions about her true role would linger for generations. Was she mastermind or victim? Justice moved swiftly in a nation hungry for closure.
Lincoln's death reshaped the future of Reconstruction. Vice President Andrew Johnson lacked Lincoln's political skill and moral authority. Policies faltered. Divisions hardened. Historians still ask whether America's racial history might have unfolded differently had Lincoln lived.
For Mary Todd Lincoln, the loss was devastating beyond words. She had endured war, criticism, and the deaths of children. Now she carried the memory of that gunshot forever. Behind the grand narrative of history lay a widow's private anguish. The unseen plot was more than an act of violence. It revealed how fragile democracy can be when hatred is allowed to fester. One bullet silenced a president, but it could not silence his ideals. His vision of unity survived the darkness that consumed him. Today, visitors stand quietly inside Ford's Theater, aware that they are standing at the crossroads of history. The air feels heavy with memory. The laughter of that April night is long gone, yet the questions remain. How easily can freedom be threatened from within? Lincoln's final night marked the end of a life, but the birth of a legend. His words endure in monuments and memory, shaping the conscience of a nation. In death, he became a symbol of unity, forged through sacrifice,